Welcome back to the Our View podcast. Today, my guests are Chandler and Jill White, my friends who are a married couple who also happen to be wheelchair users. Today, we are sharing our experiences of our recent trip down to Orlando, where I visited Disney and Chandler and Jill visited Disney and also Universal Studios. We are sharing our experiences of traveling while disabled. Let's get into this conversation. I would like to welcome everyone back to another episode of the Our View podcast, where we aim to educate, raise awareness, and change the tone of conversation about disabilities. I am grateful and very happy to have my guests on the show today. I have two guests, and it's Chandler and Jill White. So I am excited to have you all on. Thank you for joining me.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always like just getting to talk with an old friend. This is great.
Yes, and that's right. We're just talking, right? You know, it's good conversation. So Jill, you and I, we have known each other for a few years now. You are in the inclusive play world, and we connected through my other job that I have with Build Jake's Place, where we build inclusive playgrounds, and you working with landscape structures. And you were actually on my podcast in the very first season, which was a fun game of wheelchair bingo that we played, where
I think about that all the time.
It was
like
so
I'll be
fun.
out in life and it'll happen. I'll be like, oh, bingo.
Yeah, it was so fun, where we just addressed different scenarios or different things that are brought up to us as wheelchair users, common things that we hear as being wheelchair users. But I always ask my guests to introduce themselves. So Jill, can you tell our old listeners and our new listeners who you are again? And then Chandler, can you also share some information about yourself as well, who you are, and anything you would like to share about your lives and something you'd like to do for fun.
Oh boy. So I'm Jill White, recently married, and have done none of the effort that it actually takes to like change my name on stuff. So I just pick one, whatever name works. But my job, and it kind of became my passion over the years. I work for an inclusive playground specialist. So I work for a manufacturer based out of Minnesota, Landscape Structures, just to think about how kids play, how we make the experience meaningful, how do we make sure that everybody of different diagnoses really feels invited to be there. And it started as a job and really just became a much bigger passion in the process. And so I work with that very closely, but for fun, I enjoy travel anyways. Travel, food, music, video games, Pokemon cards. Our house is wildly into Pokemon cards. Caught onto the fad real big. And I'm joined today by my lovely husband, Chandler.
Yes. Hello. So I am Chandler, her husband, obviously. So let's see. I was put in a wheelchair in a car accident when I was 12. So I've been living with a disability since then. I've been playing sports, tried almost every sport under the sun, and basketball is what I've stuck with. I play basketball here in Minnesota.
He's an excellent chef.
Yeah,
he's like the world's best house husband.
Yeah.
Like I really lucked out here.
Yeah, definitely the house husband. So
and what do you
well, sports and video games, of course.
Yes.
So yeah, something when it's -5 outside.
Yes. Or +5, right?
Or +5.
Yeah, that's a little bit.
When there are only 5 degrees negative or positive, you got to have a backup plan.
Right. Yes. Definitely has to be, something else to do indoors that doesn't require you to leave your house, actually.
Big on that.
So the three of us, we had a very fun, how long was I in Minnesota? 3 or 4 days, maybe?
In the summer, notably, you're very emphatic that you were only coming in the summer.
Absolutely. I had gone to Minnesota one time in September, and it was 29 degrees, and I live in New Jersey. I think it was 60 something degrees when I left New Jersey. I got into Minnesota in September. It was when I was in my PhD program, and it was 29 degrees. And I said, I'll never never come back.
Yeah, that was enough reason to stay away.
Yeah,
It's all right.
I said I'll never come back. It has to be between the months of May and August, and and I did. I came back with to tour landscape structures, and it was such a fun trip. And I'll never forget the three of us as wheelchair users trying to get onto a boat, and
We did do that.
and
It was
we
And then
pretty
did.
get off the boat
Yeah.
after we had like happy houred on the boat.
Yes.
Like, that was part of the trick too.
Yes, and we all did it successfully. And I went out with our friend. I came out to Minnesota with our friend Michael Wiley, and I just remember him saying, "Please, whatever you do, do not fall in this lake." He
I
goes, "You-
remember that
he goes, "You
because
can
Michael
fall."
Wiley was dressed to the nines that day in his little boat outfit.
Yes,
And like I can only imagine that man diving in to save anyone.
yes.
He was like, "No, it's not happening. You're on your own."
Right. He goes, "You can fall on me, you can fall on the dock, but do not fall in this lake." I said, "Oh, trust me, that's the last thing I'll do is fall in the lake."
Right.
And it was just such a fun such a fun trip, and that actually is a good segue into our conversation for today, which is accessible travel. And like I said, I came to Minnesota with Michael, and that was the first time I had traveled with him. So that was an experience for him as well, just to see how I manage things and how I'm able to carry my bags. And but then at the same time, still um, wise enough to know when I needed assistance with things, to say like, "Hey, Michael," or to ask someone at the airport to help and assist me with something. So I often travel by myself, whether I'm in my car or I've traveled to California by myself to see relatives. So I'm very I'm able to do things, and I go to Atlantic City or New York City and stay over in hotels. So I can manage uh, pretty well by myself, being a person with a disability and a wheelchair user. But sometimes things are not so uh, accessible for people with disabilities. So I wanted to have this conversation with the two of you because in the fall, we all, you two went together. I went separately with my mom and my two
It was
friends.
the birthday celebration, the
Yes,
extravaganza.
Yes, we
Don't
were
forget
all.
to mention
No,
that.
no, it was an extravaganza for sure. I went to Disney to celebrate my 40th birthday, and my mom was turning 70. We went in October, although my birthday was not until Thanksgiving, and her birthday is December 2nd. But we had planned this trip for over 2 years. We had a big plan to have family and friends come, and then everybody knows what happened in the spring of 2020 with COVID. So we had a lot of people, understandably, back out from the trip, but I still had two friends, my friend Kristen and her husband Daniel. I went to college with Kristen. They live in Florida, and so they still came, and they actually drove. I didn't know Florida was so big, but they drove for 6 hours.
Yeah.
They lived near in the Panhandle, and they drove for 6 hours to come stay at Disney with us for the week that we were there. So it was really such a fun trip that we took. And so I wanted to share our different experiences or our similar experiences. I'm not sure of what we experienced in Disney as far as accessibility and things go. So as I said, I went to Disney for my birthday, and you all went to Disney as well, to Florida. And were you celebrating anything special, or is this a favorite vacation spot for you?
We had never been. We were going, so we got married during the pandemic, and we we also renovated a house that was built in 53 and was like almost about to die. And then we were like, no, you get the jaws of life. So we had undergone, just priorities were in a different place, and we hadn't got to go on a honeymoon. And it was really it was a week after our anniversary. And so we anniversary honeymooned it and made a week of it, and like put more in it. Like you have to have a lot of energy to go to all the parties.
Yeah, we went for a full week.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. I think you guys got there the day we were leaving or the day before we were leaving. Um, and it
Oh, we should
was,
have planned better.
I know.
I know.
We were just
Should have
shy
went
of
to the
it.
wine fest.
That would have been so much fun. We have to do that. Let's make it happen.
We do.
Yeah.
Let's go back.
I'm
Epcot with
down.
art.
Yes, absolutely. That was actually my third time in Disney. We went as a family when I was 4 or 5 years old, maybe. Then I went on my senior trip from high school, and then going now as a almost 40-year-old.
Yeah, you're not. You
um,
don't look a day over 30.
oh well, thank you.
That's true. I actually really
I
had no
thought you were.
idea.
Yeah.
I actually thought you were like 29.
Thank you.
And then you said
Yeah.
I'm celebrating my 40th, and I'm still not convinced.
Right.
Yeah, it's surprising to me too, because sometimes I'm just like, wait, like where did the time go? Because I can um vaguely remember that first trip to Disney actually, and doing the character breakfast thing and seeing the
Oh, yeah.
characters. And I remember those things. Of course, I remember my senior class trip and everybody wanting to because I was at the time as a a high school senior, I was riding every ride and would ride it twice if you wanted me to. And so everybody was like, oh great, like yeah, can you come with us and like get on this with us? And so it was a lot of fun. This time around was a little bit different. I didn't get on too many things, but we spent a lot of time. We spent a lot of time in the parks. We went to a park every day, except for that last day. It started to rain, and I was kind of grateful that it did.
Yeah.
We were out that day. I think no, that was the day we landed. It was very wet and gray.
It was, yeah, and it cleared up, and I said, "Oh, I can, I can make it to that Epcot or to Magic Kingdom and see the fireworks one more time." And I said, "No, because if it starts raining, I'll be pissed." So
We were real mad.
Yeah. We got
And
caught
wet.
on monsoon one day.
We
Yeah.
did. It was gosh, it was one of those thunderstorms, a Florida thunderstorm for sure. And we had just finished Space Mountain. And all of a sudden we're sitting in the little indoor area, and Chandler and I look at each other, I think at the same time, and go, I gotta go to the bathroom. And it's like monsooning outside.
Oh,
We
no.
bought these dumb little ponchos, and we're like sprinting to go to the accessible restroom, hiding underneath the monorail. But
Oh.
at this point, it's raining sideways, so it's not doing anything for
Yeah.
us. Like, we were waiting on our Disney wristbands to print. And so both of us are trying to find a spot like to keep this receipt dry, because you can't get your wristband without the freaking receipt.
Right.
So just like, I remember getting stuck in a monsoon going, this is awful and chaotic.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Patience.
So to talk more specifically about our travel experiences, we my mom and I, we shared a room, and my friends, they shared a room that was actually next to ours. We stayed at Disney Pop Century, um, and just I would like to talk about the hotel uh, experience, the room, the size, the width. I mean, you are two wheelchair users. I'm just one wheelchair user, so I'm very interested
Yeah.
to to hear your experience about where you stayed, and about the hotel, like the width of the doors and things like that. How did you find that to be accessible or not so accessible for you?
So this, I guess, and jump in whenever would be a great spot for the comparison. When we were staying at Universal, we stayed at the Hard Rock, which is on the Universal campus per se. And what I loved about it, besides hotel carpet, I hate hotel carpet. That's a nightmare situation.
It's the
Yeah.
worst.
Nightmare to get to. But it was really nice that we didn't have to rely on transportation. We were able to exit the hotel and push to either the park itself, push to City Center, City Walk is what it's called, which is the big entrance into Universal, or they had an accessible little boat so you could take the ferry over there, and we would do that so we could play Pokemon Go instead of having to push at the same time. But I really appreciated Universal because I love, as a user, when you don't feel like you have to request too many accommodations to get around somewhere. of that we could get from our room to the park and engage and be there quickly, stop and get food, stop and grab coffee, and you're not reliant on which bus has its accessible seats open, which Uber has enough space for you and are they nearby, does this water taxi have a comfortable spot for your wheelchair, is it too full? So I really did like the autonomy from the hotel at Universal.
Mhm.
Do you have anything to add to that?
No, it was really accommodating. Like we didn't have to really change any way that we went about going to the park or like having to make sure that there wasn't any steps in the way. Like it was really accessible. And the boat was super easy, super flat, no ramps, just right on. You just park a chair and then you're off. So
The room itself was a little tight though, of getting two wheelchairs around in there. And I just got a wheelchair that was a little wider, that like barely fit in between the bed and the wall. So that was driving me bananas. And I think that was the hotel. The bathroom wasn't like it was spacious, but the way they lay out some of these spaces where they have the door that goes inward. So if that door's going inward, like, and I need to get my chair in there, like we had room service coming and the room service guy's coming up and I'm trying to take a shower. And so I either have to leave my wheelchair outside of the room or just give this man a show. So like choices like that, it's moments like that where, I mean, especially as a designer and thinking about how we experience spaces, I was in the restroom going, this is really dumb. And like my wheelchair was like nowhere near me. So
yes,
the Hard Rock in location was nice. The room was a little tight. And when we got to Disney, sorry, I'm answering your question in a really long-winded way, I guess. But when we got to Disney, we stayed at the JW Marriott. Big Marriott fan, we get points there. So it wasn't formally on the Disney campus, but it was really close. But that one was a little bit more challenging because we were very reliant. Like we had to Uber anywhere we wanted to go. Or take the monorail where it was, I don't know if you took the monorail, but that is a long ramp, real long ramp.
oh yes,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
it's
yeah.
like it's like almost like 3 stories of a ramp.
It is sure ADA compliant, but man, that is a long ramp.
Yes. Well, that was my question. I'll start with the monorail since that I have a picture of that ramp, and I was wondering if it was ADA compliant because
I don't know. I told myself it was to make myself feel better, but there were times I was like, this is a slope.
it's tough. It was really tough. And what I thought about, and actually, it was when I experienced that monorail ramp when I thought, oh my gosh, like I have to have you both on to talk about this.
That
Because
was a horrible ramp.
Yeah, especially after being at the park all day and then you look up.
And then you see the train coming and you know you have a limited amount of time to get to the top of that monorail before the train leaves.
Yeah, and you're like, oh shit, wait a minute, like it's this is steep.
Yeah.
I'm real tired right now.
And what I thought about honestly was I was with my mom and 2 of my friends. And I thought about for wheelchair users who use manual wheelchairs where they push themselves, who might be by themselves. And it's just like, yeah, you can rely on and ask, one of the cast members there or, a fellow park goer to help you, but it's just like, you shouldn't have
He
to.
certainly was not going to tow me up that hill.
Right.
And vice versa.
You were on your own.
Right. So it's those types of things. And speaking of the hotel rooms, like I said, I was just one wheelchair user in our hotel room. And it was one of the things of like, okay, there's 2 beds here. Which bed am I going to take? Because, where am I going to park my chair? And all those kinds of situations. Like I can crawl around without my braces on. So that's not an issue for me. I don't like doing it at hotels, but it's like if I have to, I will. But the bathroom, yes, was not spacious enough for me to turn my chair around in, and it just really makes me wonder. And I've said this before on a podcast episode where I wonder who really designs these rooms. And I know the ADA has certain standards that they have to, that places have to follow and laws and rules and things that they have to follow. But a lot of times these things are not functional for people who actually have disabilities.
Right.
Mhm.
Like
You know,
when we got to the JW Marriott and we got to our room, and it was an accessible room, and it was this like breath of fresh air when we got there because it was more spacious. There was room, lots of room for our chairs to navigate, roll-in shower. The tub was really big, but then you get into the bathroom and they have one of those dumb little like designated rooms for the toilet
Mhm.
because the shower's here and then the little toilet's in this little like cubby, and
mhm.
that's comfortable transfer. You gotta like
Yeah, it's just like straight on. There's no like angling at all.
Right.
you gotta out of your wheelchair and just pray you don't land in the ether.
Right.
Like, pivot, turn, and pray.
Mhm.
Right. It's the other thing was the mattresses, the beds, because they're on a box spring or a platform, and then it's the mattress that's God knows how thick.
Yeah, they're always ridiculous.
10-inch thick mattress on top of a platform
Right.
that's
It's like
already
a
2 feet off of the
yardstick.
bed, which doesn't make for easy transfers for people in wheelchairs. If you have the upper body strength to do it, yeah, but you're still kind of launching yourself up on the bed,
Yeah, and
hoping you.
hoping you're not sliding back
I
off.
was gonna say, and hoping you stay
Yeah.
on it.
Uh-huh.
Oh, what drove me nuts too at the Hard Rock at Universal was that they tried to make the room very fanciful. They put the little couch in like a little nook and cranny, but the window was behind the couch. And
Mhm.
every single day, housekeeping would come in and open the curtains, open the blinds, but our room faced another room, and so like we'd get back and we'd want to shut our blinds, and then it was a process of like nose goes of who has to shut this stupid window because somebody's got to crawl out of their wheelchair, crawl on the couch, like try to grab this thing. I mean, it was a process, and it's
Yeah.
stuff like if you, I can't even imagine that's comfortable for an able-bodied person because you're doing like a weird lean over this sofa, anyways.
Right. It's again, it just really makes me think of like who designs this stuff. And
Mhm.
not just like you said, not just for people with disabilities, but for anybody. Like it can't be easy to climb over a sofa.
Yeah, it was really weirdly placed.
Yeah, it's really it's one of those things that I say quite often. It's like, yes, they've come a long way and there's a long way to go. And I think what really surprised me about Disney was for as popular as they are and um, for as long as they've been around. There's Walt Disney World celebrating 50 years this year.
Mhm.
Well, I think it started last year. Um, just how it wasn't quite accessible for everything. Where we stayed at Pop Century, they have a new mode of transportation called the Skyliner, which is a modern day, I guess, like cable car, ski lift type of situation.
Oh, I
That's
remember I wanted to ride that.
yeah, that's closed in. And it made me think when you mentioned that you had just recently got a new wheelchair that is a little bit wider. It's the Skyliner fits, I believe, 6 people, can fit up to 10 or something like that. And my wheelchair, because of the way it's designed, the wheels go out on an angle. So it's not straight, it's not a straight box. It goes out on the wheels go out on an angle. So my chair just
Mhm.
fit on the Skyliner because there's 2 benches and my chair, you drive it straight in and it fits between the 2 benches. And thankfully the 3 people I was with were also able to fit on it. But I'm thinking, it's like, why couldn't they make something where like part of a bench went up so that I could, to make more space? It's like you're Disney, like, can you get it
Or
together?
like, I mean,
Yeah.
if we did
Yeah.
that, you saying that, we probably wouldn't have been able to ride it together.
No, you wouldn't have.
Universal, they have the Hogwarts Express, which
Mhm.
obviously you're a diehard Harry Potter fan like we are. You want to ride the Hogwarts Express, but that's their park to park transport. If you want to
Mhm.
go from adventure to regular Universal Studios, you have to take this train. And there's only one accessible seat per section of the train. And so they gave Chandler his own, I think. I was riding it with his family of 4.
Yeah, I was riding it with other people.
Oh yeah, like we like awkwardly are sitting in there meeting this whole new family,
Wow.
and mine was really cute. They all spoke Spanish, and like asked me a question or something and I panicked and just said "see," and by the end of it we were all friends. But I mean, that's such an awkward thing to do. If they're on their family vacation having their family time, I'm on mine, and all of a sudden like it's this family merger just because there's no way to sit together. So
Right.
like just those little moments of
Well, I guess it kind of, I guess one of the things too is like maybe they have kind of strict rules on it. So like they did have like the back of the platform for the train like opened up so you could get your chair in, but when I was in there, I was like, Jill could have been right beside me, but they had a rule that like only one wheelchair per, I guess, accessible spot. So I was kind of, I wish that they would have kind of just listened a little on that end. But I guess if it's just, rules are rules, but there was a lot of instances like that where we could have made something work and they were just like, no, you can't. That's not gonna happen.
yeah, like the human component kind of goes out of it in a way.
Right. And that's one of the other situations I ran into was it's like you have your classic rides, like, you said Space Mountain and uh, It's a Small World and all your
The
Dumbo
rock and roller
ride.
coaster.
Yeah, you have
That's
your
the
yeah, you have
yeah.
your classic rides. And then there's like the new Avatar ride at the Animal Kingdom. So I wear
Mhm.
leg braces and I wanted to get on the ride, but because of my leg braces, I couldn't move my legs up far enough for it to snap in. They have like a
Mhm.
shin guard that locks in place that brings up the back thing and
Yeah.
it's yeah, so it's just like and I'm not saying this just for me, but it's just like why don't they think of these types of things? Because I think it's like an old stereotype again that people with disabilities don't get on these rides. They don't enjoy these rides. So
Mhm.
it's like it really irritated me with that ride specifically because it is a fairly new ride.
Yeah, and everyone really hypes that one up too.
Right. And so it was just like, oh yeah, so many of my friends, oh, when you go, you have to get on this ride, you have to get on this ride. And the thing is, I wear my braces because I don't know if I'll have to get up and transfer and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I had my braces on. Um,
Mhm.
so it's those types of situations. I just wish that they could uh, work with people like ourselves to help them.
That's one of the things I think I
Mhm,
did really appreciate about Universal is because they do rely so heavily on the 3D effects and motion rides. I mean, that's
mhm,
kind of bread and butter. They did a lot of that. But what I really could appreciate was they would have cars with the extra wide doors for you to transfer into. That they had dedicated spaces of like you get in here and we're going to move your chair to you so you can experience this ride, or even like something like Avatar where you're looking at this screen and Disney has you relying very much on this little bike so that you can travel through the experience. Universal, I did applaud the fact that they might have benches for everybody else, and those benches might have a little bit of movement. But in the event that somebody does want to stay in their chair, they would have dedicated spaces for that. And
mhm.
sure, you got on some of the sensations and the motion. I at least appreciated that they didn't say if you can't transfer your why are you here.
Right.
So
Mhm.
we could obviously go further. We could find ways to integrate that motion a little bit, but like you said, that we've come a long way. There's a ways to go, but I did really appreciate that they said, "Oh, we do have seats for you, and if you want to transfer, you can do that as well."
Rides are newer too, so they kind of had those like
It was like
carts in
Despicable
place.
Me or Shrek.
Or, yeah, and it's like the ones that it would be hard to transfer into, but the whole side would open up, and then you could just because there would be like a designated cart for that, and then they would know exactly what to do. They would put you over there, and they never lost your wheelchairs or anything. They you so I love that about Universal too.
Like they had really good team members for it, or even on the Hogwarts Castle ride, Universal. So some of you might have seen it at Disney. They had the moving metal platforms.
Mhm.
If you saw any of those, but metal cannot be on that platform when the platform is in motion. And so they would either have to stop it or say you can't go. For example, like we went to Magic Kingdom and it was one of those where everybody hyped it up to us. You got to go on the Peter Pan ride. You got to go on the Peter Pan ride. And we get there and they're like, well, if you can't walk or transfer or walk over this moving treadmill, you can't get on this ride. And so we just sat in line for it too, to be told no, which like
Oh,
it
no.
kind of was frustrating, but you think, okay, on to the next one. But in retrospect, Universal, they had the same system. They had the moving conveyor belt platform, and either they would put you in their own chair to help you safely transfer. Sorry for the dog. They would stop the track entirely. Like for the both of us, we wanted to ride a ride together. And so that's pretty difficult to do, two chair transfers where someone's pushing you and you're moving onto the ride so that we could sit next to each other. And I mean, I felt that they did a really great job of saying, okay, well, these people are going to want to ride this together. So they did stop the platform for us. And they did, they don't advertise that. Like that was kind of on the low that they were willing to do it. Felt like we were working with really good people. And then for their Hogwarts Castle ride, one of their oldest and more popular rides, like they have a full separate room where they have these lifts that come in that you can transfer onto them at a stopped pace, at a comfortable pace, and then it just merges with the rest of the ride.
Yeah, that's it's nice when you have, like you said, when you get the nice people that are willing to work things out with you, and and all that kind
I
of
think
stuff.
it's the newer rides too. They really do take that into account because like with Peter Pan, it's an older ride, so they just it's not really equipped to be stopped, or it would just back up for hours because it's the way it was built. And the same thing with like Rock and Roller Coaster, we couldn't ride that together because of fire hazards. Because of if something happened, the fire department has their like protocols. They have to like take only one disabled person on the ride at a time.
What?
So we had to ride it separately, which I was like, oh, this kind of sucks. Like we can't just.
Which was super awkward because you have to get on the ride at a different, like people don't see you getting on the ride. They don't see your wheelchair. They don't know why.
So you just show up
So
at a completely empty cart, but you're just in the back like, hey.
Only one of us too. So like the other one, they're like, well, you can sit here with the other person's stuff. And so like Chandler just bought a lightsaber, and so he's sitting there with all of our stuff. I ride the ride, and then I'm like, okay, it's your turn, and he rides the ride, and it's just super awkward.
Yeah, ride's over 20 years old, so that's what they had talked about. So I think the newer rides are way more accommodating, and I think the more that come out with new stuff, it's just going to be that much more accessible. So we kind of are just at a different time,
Yeah, I actually, when I went to Disney for my senior class trip back in what was that, 2000. I Rock and Roller Coaster was brand new. So that was it was
and it's so much fun too.
Yeah,
It is such a cool ride.
Yeah, it was brand new, and I do remember that whole thing of I rode that a few times that year. I didn't ride it this time around, but it's just and my thing is this. So you have like you said, your rides that are 20 years old and more current, and then you have those that are older. I just think it would be nice, like for using the Dumbo ride as an example. It would be nice if they could switch out one of the old Dumbos with a new Dumbo that had like that had like an older door, a newer door that was
like
wider,
something that opens up wider.
That opens up a little bit. Yeah, like it should be pretty easy to do that. I mean, it's with that kind of company with that kind of money, it's I'm not saying you have to make them all that way, but 2 or 3.
You don't have to change the entire thing, but like little accommodations do go a long way.
No, just update a few things about it and make it more accommodating so people who would like to ride it, and that way if nobody is there at that time, other people can still ride it. It's not it's not just a space for
it's not
a
like
wheelchair
designed specifically.
Exactly. It's not that it's out
of
use.
At times though, I felt like we were almost, you'd had to be ready for a pop quiz of you had to answer questions correctly. Like the human component, I felt like we lost a few times, especially at Disney, where it would be, for example, we wanted to go, we've never been, so obviously got to go to what's the big ball, the Epcot ride. What's that ride called?
Yes,
Journey or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Spaceship Earth.
Yeah, and we go, to the accessible entrance, and been herded that way. It's a side door, which is a whole other conversation, but whatever. We get there, we're ready to go. And the woman said, basically asked well, are you able to walk question? And
that's
like,
fun.
she was asking, are you able to walk from this point on? Like, there was a good, I don't know, 20 feet from where we were up the ramp. Are you able to walk from here to your seat? And like, Chandler heard her differently than I did. And so both of us kind of gave two conflicting answers. And she's looking at us going, so what can you do? And it's almost like if we answer the next portion of the question incorrectly, she was ready to say, well, you can't ride this.
Right.
And so eventually, like, we had to backpedal. We had to say, yes, in the event of an emergency, we are going to be able to walk, not walk, but like, crawl. We can get
Yes.
ourselves, we can manage.
Mhm.
And we had to be able to convey that, but use the right buzzwords. So we're looking at her going, yes, ma'am, we can walk. Because if we say anything else, she's going to be like, well, you didn't say what I needed you to say.
Right.
You're not able. And then we got there, and I mean, it was perfectly accommodating. They slowed down the track for us. We got into our seat. Everything was fine. But it's like, at times you had to get ready to answer the question right to get past the bouncers.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And like,
right.
I think if we had done that, if we'd been more prepared on Rock and Roller Coaster, we could have done the same. When they hit you with the, can you walk? They want to know, can you get out in the event of an emergency? And if yes, great. But it's like, after you give a moments of like, maybe I do this differently, shut down. Nope, they're not going to hear it anymore.
Yeah, I guess
Right.
that's just lack of knowledge on their part. Like, I went to Six Flags one time, and it was like, it's really one of the tallest ones called Goliath, and they were like, you have to be able to walk down the steps in case of emergency. But I kind of swindled my way on it, and they just came up and they're like, are you paralyzed? And I was like, not fully. And they were like, all right, good to go. I was like, I'm alive, but like, it's like, yeah, if it's stuck, I'm gonna get down. I'm not, but it's just how much of that is just lack of knowledge with a lot of people, and they don't want to say the wrong thing. So
Yeah,
Exactly.
but it's like exactly that. It's a lack of knowledge, but an unwillingness to have the dialogue.
Mhm.
So we ended up in a situation once where we answered the question wrong, but I was really impressed when they said, well, how about you come look at this setup and we'll see, like, does this work? If this is what we're required to do versus what do you need to do? And so it was this merging. Like, I felt like there was this degree of like, we want to work with you. We want to make sure you can have this experience. And so I do know they are a little bit newer and things are a little bit more recent. But I felt like the overall attitude was a little more accommodating.
Yeah, and that's what happened.
I was impressed with that.
Yeah, that happened with my mom and I with what is it? It's one of the other Avatar ride, Navi River, I think it's called.
yeah, that one is tough. Yeah.
Yeah, with the transfer into the thing, that was
Yeah.
it was
That and Pirates of the Caribbean.
it was rough. But the guy at the front, I asked him like, what is it like? What's the transfer situation like? And he said, well, and he checked with, I guess one of the managers, or, I don't know what they're exactly called, but he said, well, I'll take you in through the exit so you can see it. And then if you feel like you can do it, then you can get on. I said, okay. And the wait time wasn't long at all. So I was like prepared to go back through and wait in the line with everybody else. And we were there, and he was just like, it's just the two of you? We said, yeah. He goes, all right, I'll put you on like one of these next things coming up. Like, just wait here. He was like, if you think you can do it. I said, yeah, I can, get in and out, and won't be pretty, but I won't fall in the water.
Back to falling in lakes. Still not doing it.
Yeah, I'll tear this place down before I fall in.
Right.
I'll grab onto everything.
Right. I won't fall in that water, but I'll get there. Might lose a shoe, but but my clothes will stay dry. So it was, it was those types of little things that were, really nice. Instead of, like you said, getting through, waiting in a line for an hour or so just to find out, like, oh shoot, this is not accessible. I can't really get on and off of this ride, safely.
Yeah. And so many other rides too. I mean, they'll say this ride requires a transfer, or this ride requires you to be able to stand. But in reality, it's almost hard to gauge you by that, because you move so differently and everybody can do different things. And so there's almost no way of knowing.
Right.
So it's just when you get there, you hope it's been accommodated for you. And to your point, I mean, some people in Disney, they had a really good job with the human component of, we wanted to do the Jungle Cruise ride, and only one wheelchair can fit on one of the boats. And so they're sitting there going, well, obviously we don't want to separate you. How can we do this? And so they brought us through the exit. We got to look at it. Chandler stayed in his wheelchair. I did some like swindling to jump down, but they were ready. They had my wheelchair. They asked where I needed support. So there was this existence of people who were really excited to work with you and make a solution present. And maybe that comes down to training. I mean, maybe it's not necessarily always the facility, but it's how do we educate our employees on disability? Is it this hard, fast line, or is there a little bit more like, let's make sure we're working with you to make your experience positive? And I think that would be really good to see throughout.
And that is why I knew I could have this conversation with you all, where we could share our experiences and then also come up with solutions.
Because it's not just a bitch fest.
I was going to say, it's great.
As nice as those are.
It's great to bitch about stuff, and then also to come up with potential solutions where it, again, like I said, if you can just switch out one of those Dumbo rides or one of those, log flume rides, or just, I mean, it should be fairly easy. And back to the hotel situation, it's, my friends and my mom, they were saying, oh, you definitely have to see who you could write a letter to about this hotel room. I said, well, I know what they're going to say. I said, first of all, this company is not, they're not risking their, being sued about accessibility. Like I said, if and again, with that ramp for the monorail, if that ramp has to be at a 32 degree slope, it's at 32. It's no more than that. Like they're going up right to the line. I said, as far as the hotel room goes, I said, that's the problem. There's nothing that says that rooms at all the properties have to be accessible. They just have to provide accessible rooms. They have them over at their Caribbean villas that are, $2,000 a day.
Yeah. Right.
So that's what they'll tell you. Like, oh, well, you can get an accessible villa. There's much more space
over here.
Are you
paying for it? Great.
Right. So I said that's how they get around it. So no, they're not breaking any laws. I'm almost positive of that. They didn't get that far being less than smart. So it's, there's ways around a lot of things, and they have found it. But like you said, just to provide training for their employees, and not just during orientation, to provide it every couple of months, once a year, to say, hey, here's how we can assist people. And, we had talked about when we played the wheelchair bingo about, certain things that people do for people with disabilities, people in wheelchairs, and just pushing your chair without asking, like just little things like that. And saying, how can I assist you? How can I be of assistance to you? And just teaching people, their employees, ways to assist their customers. And I think that would really, really go a long way in improving things. Like, of course, I will definitely go back. I'm already thinking about it. And like we said in the beginning, like going back to Epcot and doing the wine and food festival again, and just it was a great time. I had a great time during that week that we were there. And but still, to bring this type of topic out and to discuss it, to make people aware, because you never know who's listening or who might know somebody. Even at Disney or outside of Disney or Universal, just who may hear something that we're talking about and can say like, oh yeah, well, we can do better in this, in this specific way. And I've had people that I've traveled with sometimes that, they can't believe some of the things that I experience as a wheelchair user. And, we brought it up briefly with having the transportation at the hotels, and making that an easy thing, so you don't have to wait for an accessible Uber. And because accessible Ubers are few and far between,
And they're a little more expensive.
They're
Like,
expensive.
if you're going to call an Uber XL, even if it's not going to be accessible, quote unquote, but have room for 2 chairs, you're paying more money.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. And I've out in New York City, I was left by a few accessible Ubers that they're accessible and they're on the app as being accessible. They pull over to come pick me up and they see that I'm a wheelchair user and they take off.
They
So-
get a toot about it.
Crap.
They get a
No
toot.
way.
I
Yeah.
believe it.
Yeah, that's happened to me twice. It happened to me. Thankfully, I was with other people when it happened, and they were just like their minds were blown. Like,
Oh no, I was gonna say that happened to a friend of mine in New York. She called an accessible van because she was taking her racing wheelchair to Central Park, and she called a van, and there's plenty of space for it. The guy had stopped. They weren't even in a busy area, and he got there and flat out refused. He said, "You're not getting in my vehicle." And she said,
wow,
"Sir, just so you know, that is discrimination, and I am going to report you." And this man, he got on the app. She never got into his vehicle. And he got in and reported her for not wearing her mask. And so she actually got banned from Uber for like a week because of this guy who actively stripped
wow,
her, but was just quicker to the punch.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like I
it's
can understand if you outright come out and say, I'm afraid that, the chair is gonna damage the inside. Like I can respect that more than just like with what your driver said, like, oh no, my shift ended. You're like, I
That's
know
right
what you're
there.
doing. You just made it worse without
Right.
just like
right.
what you're really
You
concerned
clearly
about. Like,
agreed to take my friends who are able-bodied, and then
yeah.
you saw me and said, "Oh no, my shift ended." Like, okay, like how are you going to take them?
Wow,
The
Felicia, like,
the
man.
30 blocks
Yeah.
in the 2 seconds it took you to say your shift ended. Like that makes no sense, sir. But like, okay, no problem. So we this conversation, like I said, it's very much needed, and again, not just a bitch fest, but
Right.
it's necessary to have these conversations because without the conversations, we can't change anything. Things have to be talked about as uncomfortable as they may be. Um, and that's, we have to start somewhere, and talking about it, I think, is a great place to start because we can, as people who have the experience of living with disabilities and being wheelchair users, it's like we can, I guess we're the best ones to to offer this feedback is what
Hmm.
I would like to call it, because I love traveling and I love as you mentioned, Jill, I love concerts and going going places and just doing things and having fun. Um, and then it's I think it's what the social model of disability, where it's like, are we disabled because of our diagnosis, or are we disabled because society around us is not accessible? So it's
Right,
really
is it the environment?
yeah, is it the
Mhm.
environment around us that makes us disabled? Uh, and a lot of times, I think, especially through conversations like this, we see that the environment and society around us makes it hard for us to get around and just do things that everybody likes to do. Everybody loves taking trips and going on airplanes. And as you mentioned in your story about getting on the plane with your dogs and not having the aisle chairs, it's just like you checked in with, they saw that you had 2 wheelchairs. Like, why didn't they just start sending
Yeah.
the
Well,
aisle
no.
chairs? Right.
Blunder there.
But what I appreciate about these conversations too, and Chandler and I talk about this all the time, is that it takes a special kind of person to, I think, educate in a constructive way. And that's why I really appreciate the conversations with you, artists, because it's a bitch fest, but it's also a solution fest of like, we're not going to sit here and just complain about how awful everything is. We want to talk about it in a constructive way. We want to talk about it in a way people can relate to. Of like, I think last do the story of when I was getting out of the airplane at like 7 in the freaking morning. People don't need to be doing either of those things, getting off of planes or being awake at 7 o'clock in the freaking morning. And I was getting off of this plane and the flight attendant came up behind me, just like, I wear my backpack and my backpack is a bona fide 2,000 pounds. I believe everything in the world should fit in one backpack and that's fine. And so it's going to take me a little bit longer, but I've got my system. And this woman comes up behind me and grabs me by the waist. It's 7 a.m. I haven't had a drink yet. Like, this is early for this. And pushes me up the jet bridge going, choo choo. Like, in my head, I was like, we're on an airplane, lady. Like, you went for the train noise. First off, you're not correct. Second off, this is ridiculous. Third off, this is really embarrassing to bust into the terminal going choo choo.
Right.
But like, that's as ridiculous as that is, that's not that obscene of a story for somebody in a wheelchair. But I made a Facebook status about it and just told the story and made it funny, made it very obvious how obscene it was. And the response I got from it were people were calling me going, no way, that did not happen. Stuff like that can't happen to you. Have I ever done that to you? Have I made you that uncomfortable? And so all of a sudden we're laughing about it, but people are aware of it. And they have this education of like, that is the lived experience.
Right.
And so I value these conversations because it does bring to light that experience without attacking people for not knowing.
Yeah, that's what it is. Like, you don't want to shun people that still, like, with good intentions, essentially. Like, still wanted to help, she just didn't. She went about the complete wrong way of doing it. You don't want to like shame her, and so swear she never even wants to help someone who's disabled again because of fear, being blasted on the internet or something like that. So
yeah, and it's like you said, it's not like we just talked about the bad parts of our trip and like, okay, well, that's the end of the episode, let's wrap this up.
Yeah. I mean, overall though, our trip was it was fun. And
I had the time of my life in Disney. It was a great time. And I was telling people, I said, I know a lot of families that go to Disney every year, every other year. They go 3 out of 5 years, and I'm just like, how? Like why? Why would you go someplace over and over again? I was at Disney for 2 days, and I was like, oh, I get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We didn't go to the Tequila Cave. I forgot to tell you. We didn't make it to Tequila Cave.
Well, that's gonna be our main reason for
that's
going.
That's why we're going back.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we'll go back.
There it is.
I am absolutely about that. Yeah.
That's why we'll go back. But it's really. I did. I had the time of my life. I'm definitely going back sometime soon. It was just so much fun and just the experience of it all. But it really made me realize, I guess, the difficulties. Again, I was there with 3 other people, and that's not always the case for people with disabilities. We don't always travel with other people. Not all of us have caregivers or nurses that are with us to help us out. So it really made me think about those individuals who are traveling by themselves and what difficulties they might have navigating certain things, ramps and hotel rooms and things like that. But again, I think like we mentioned, educating and training would go a very long way. So any Disney employees that are listening, we are the 3 of us are available to travel.
Right, give us a call, invite us back.
To travel to any of your parks, to all of your parks.
Many times we'll be there.
As many times as you need us, we will be there to put on.
We'll talk over drinks.
Yes, we'll go to the Tequila Cave at Epcot and just we are available.
There is. I would love to touch on one thing though, because I think it's kind of the unspoken, not even the elephant in the room, but I know we're in respect of time, but how Disney, it used to be the big thing of like people in wheelchairs got to the front of the line, and how that's shifted and how they've made different accommodations. And one of the things I really wanted to appreciate about some of the newer rides that they are thinking about, as much as it sucks for us to lose that perk, is that I did go to Universal by myself in August of last year. Chandler and I went back again in October because I was like, man, you got to see Harry Potter World. This will change your life. But one of the things I was looking up was their accessibility policy. Like I'm sitting there trying to figure out, okay, can I get to the front of the lines, pull this card? And they were really emphatic that they said, no, the lines are actually part of our experience. And I'm going like, there's absolutely no way that adding like waiting in a line is going to make my day better. But I mean, it was moving fast, and you're seeing if like some of these newer rides, they go all out in decorating their line. Of
Mhm.
like you're walking Hogwarts Castle, you're seeing like in Universal, you go through the Forbidden Forest, or Hagrid's hut, like different aspects of this fantasy world, and there's a lot to look at. Like, and it was kind of weird to be in this equitable environment where we are waiting in a line. Granted, we got the express pass, we weren't waiting there for very long, but they didn't have to do anything special. They made the newer rides more invitational to us, and same went for Disney. Rise of the Resistance. Of
Yes,
did you ride on that one?
I did.
Like the line was part of the experience.
It was.
Sitting there going like, this is a slow ride, but like it's part of the line, and you're getting the buildup of all of a sudden why that ride is so cool.
Yes. And I think, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, and I think a lot of it may have, I'm not positive, I don't know this for a fact, but with the width of the walkways, um, they weren't always that wide. So I think that's
Right.
why
Yeah.
Pinch.
yeah, that's why you had to go through the exit because for some reason they made the exits a lot bigger, I guess, in case of emergencies, people could get out faster, maybe. I don't know.
Uh,
I guess
Um,
I've never thought about that. Why
yeah.
it exists that way.
Yeah, because it was always interesting to me, like, okay, this is the accessible entrance, but it's actually the exit where everybody else is exiting from. So it's just very interesting why and again, I have no proof of that, but that's just something that I thought of that maybe makes sense.
Yeah, no, it
Uh,
totally does to me.
and
Yeah.
now they've like you said, with the newer rides, they've made them more wide. The walkways are more wide, so wheelchairs can get through them. So there's really, I guess, there's less of a need for the
yeah,
wheelchairs to enter through the
you're not
exits.
there's no stairs anywhere. It's all ramps, which
Right.
is super cool, and it's very
Right.
convenient.
And it's amazing how everybody can use a ramp, isn't it? It's amazing.
How applicable is a ramp?
It's amazing how everybody can actually use a ramp. So, but yeah, Rise of the Resistance, that was fun. Smuggler's Run, I got on that as well. That was cool.
Mhm.
But yeah, and again, those were like that was a ramp. That was a heck of a ramp. And I think it was Smuggler's Run that just kept going and
Yeah,
going.
you'll definitely come back from a trip to Disney in shape.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, your
yeah.
metabolism will jumpstart and restart and everything.
Even if you're eating all the funnel cakes in sight, you're pushing
Oh, the
forever.
cheesy pretzels.
Absolutely,
Burn those
yeah.
off real quick.
Yeah, you're yeah, you're definitely getting the workout and for sure at Disney. Yeah, it's I was much younger when I went. I was like, wow, I didn't know that these these rails were like hills last time I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
here.
They look a lot different now.
Right.
One of the things I did appreciate at Epcot, though, I thought was really cool that they did it, and I can't wait to see it kind of pop up in more places because I think it will catch on. I don't know if you went shopping in the big shopping center, but you could check out at all these little like pop-up checkout stations
Mhm.
where you pay on the app, show the person that you paid, and leave. And
Mhm.
like I appreciated that is because I mean, I don't know, think about any shopping experience where if you've got a couple of different things, you're on your lap, you're trying to navigate your wheelchair while holding these things and push through the little like woven line with a million other people. That's not an easy experience.
Right.
That's kind of cumbersome, and I drop a lot of things in that process. Whereas this, it was kind of nice that you could do this on the go,
Mhm.
wherever you was something that met you where you were. And I felt like that was a really cool solution that could benefit people and be used in a lot of different places.
Yeah, there were so many great things. The good definitely outweighed the bad.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
for
feel
sure.
like the direction that it's all going, especially with the ease of technology and even just, I
Yes.
mean, how long they've had the magic bands where you just your ticket is and you just pay with your wrist and you don't
Yes.
have to like fumble with your backpack. And
Right. Yeah,
I
that
like the
is
direction it's going.
yes, definitely. I agree. It's again, this conversation was great. I really appreciate talking with you both. It's great to see you both. I can't wait to get together. Either I'll come back out there or we'll meet in Florida.
Meeting the sunny, yeah, exactly. That's what I was
meet,
thinking
meet
too.
where it's
How
somewhere
about we meet at
warm.
the Tequila Cave?
Yeah, we can meet at Epcot.
You free next week? Cool. See you there.
Right, where it's somewhere where it's warm. But
For
thank
sure.
you, yeah, thank you both for sharing your experience and also offering solutions for for how this can be improved, because again, everything I think is a work in progress. And grateful, Jill, we have talked about this before with playgrounds like that we're both involved with. Playgrounds weren't always accessible when I was coming up. When you were younger, they didn't have the uh, surfacing that exists, the poured in place surfacing. And now we see, as time is going on, more of these playgrounds are being built and being constructed, and people are actively seeking them out. And how can we make our playground in our town more accessible, more inclusive for everybody? Jake's Place, we're working with 6 townships now in New Jersey to build.
Congrats.
Yeah, we one township opened one in the end of October. Actually, it was the week after I got back from Disney.
That's
they
happy.
yeah, they opened one, and it's just great how things are changing in a positive direction for inclusiveness and accessibility for people with disabilities, because we're everywhere. We do a lot of stuff. We like to have fun. The 3 of us at least like to drink tequila.
Oh, yeah.
Character traits.
Right, we
We
like
want
to
to be accessible when we're drinking our tequila.
Right,
We want to be able to fumble out of there like everybody else.
exactly. We just want to be like everybody else. Yeah, so we again, this conversation is great, and thank you both for your time. I really appreciate it. And I will be in touch and talk to you soon.
Okay,
Cool.
awesome.
Thanks for having us.
All
Yeah.
right. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Our View podcast. Did you find something in the episode that you really liked? Be sure to leave us a comment on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel. Make sure you're following us to see the world from our view on Instagram at Our View for Life. That's OURVIEW, the number 4 LIFE. We thank you for listening.